Hey, welcome back to DIY Willie. It's a beautiful day here in sunny California, and today we've got the Yaris, and we're just going to do some maintenance on it. This is the world of DIY Willie and having so many cars in the fleet that, well, they need service, you know. This is a 2017 Toyota Yaris. This is one of the cars made in France for the Toyota. See, made in France. So today, it's got the maintenance required light, and that light generally means it's ready for an oil change. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We'll clear that light, that maintenance required light, at the end of the video, and yeah, let's change the oil. All right, so there's really not much to it. Most people know how to change the oil in the car, and there's some people that just don't want to mess with it and they take it somewhere and they have the service done. Me, being DIY Willie, I like to do everything myself that I can do, and this is the first time I've changed the oil in this car. Mrs. Willie has always taken it to the Toyota dealer, but I've convinced her this time to let me do it. So we've got some Mobil 1 we're gonna throw in there. I think it's 530 weight. We'll double check on the cap when we get to the engine compartment. And yeah, it's a really easy process. The worst part of the whole thing of doing oil changes yourself is getting rid of the old oil. You know, what do you do with it? You know, you gotta make sure it's contained. You gotta make sure you take it to the proper disposal place. Here in California, it's usually one of the auto parts stores. Their service centers will usually accept it. The other auto parts stores usually have a drum or something in the back where they'll take it. But it's very important that you dispose of the oil properly. So with that said, let's look at the engine compartment. All right, now this Yaris, we try to keep it fairly clean, and you can see it's just a little bit dusty up here, but overall the engine is very clean, and I like to keep them that way if I can. This car only has a little over 55,000 miles on it for a 2017. That's very low. So there's our oil filter we're gonna go after down there on the bottom. We got the drain plug, and we'll get the old oil out. It says on the cap, if you ever are in question of what oil to use in your vehicle, they generally will say on the cap or in your owner's manual what oil is recommended for these vehicles. And nowadays with these computer controlled engines, you know, they monitor oil pressure a lot. And if you change the oil viscosity, is that the way to say it? If you change the oil viscosity too much, the engine will have difference in oil pressure enough that it can throw the engine into limp mode, and it won't want to run properly. I know Honda is very particular about that. I don't know so much if the Toyotas are that way, but I know Honda is very specific that way. So it's usually best to follow the recommended oil viscosity ratings that we need. And again, if you look at your manual, I'll see if I can put a shot of ours in this video somewhere. It'll recommend the viscosity for your temperature of your area you're in. So if there's a dipstick, we'll check that in a little bit once we get the old oil out, and then we'll start changing the oil. All right, so when you start your oil change, you want to make sure you take off your cap at the top of the engine. It helps allow the oil to drain, I've always been told, so I just do it. Also, you want to make sure you get yourself a good strong set of gloves on. You don't want the used oil to touch your skin. It's always best practice to wear some gloves. Even though I have done it many times in the past without using gloves, it's not a good idea. Now underneath, I've got the drain plug out. It was a 14 millimeter. On the Yaris, I've let the oil drain. And always take care of your drain plug. Make sure it's clean. You may have to replace the crush washer or the washer on it that seals. We'll look at that here in a second. And then we'll clean the area around there to make sure we get a good seal when we tighten her back up. And you're not gonna wrench it on either, man. You're just gonna get it nice and firmly tight. There's probably a torque specification. I don't have it. I usually just tighten it as best I can by hand and call it a day. Here's what I was referring to on the drain plug. You want to make sure it's good and clean. And this washer is what's going to seal it. Now if you take it off, or if you have an oil leak or something from here, you can replace this washer. I have some copper washers I can use that I've always had good luck with, or you can go down and purchase a new seal washer like this. From most auto parts stores will have them, or you can get it from the dealer yourself. But I buy a packet of copper washers that come in various sizes off one of the big internet websites, and yeah, they work out good. So this one still looks good. I think we'll be able to reuse it, and we'll get this back on and we'll start filling it up with oil. All right, now on these smaller cars, well, actually a lot of the cars nowadays, they use smaller filters, and you know, you can pick yourself up one of these little tools here. Like, I call it a socket, and it kind of mimics the inside shape of the filter. Here, we'll show you. See how it's got these little flat spots? It kind of mimics that. So it grabs a hold of it and allows you to turn the filter. The one on the engine will be the same. Now sometimes these are not quite the size. Sometimes you can take like a little bit of black tape and wrap it around the filter, put this on there, and it'll grip it a lot better. But I haven't had much problem with these. I buy them in different sizes for different filters, and it just connects to my 1/2 inch or my 3/8 drive ratchet like that. We're good to go. Let me get this filter off and we'll get ready to put the new one on. All right, so it's always a good idea, if you don't have shop towels laying around in abundance, to have a good roll of paper towel. I know they're kind of expensive nowadays, but that's handy. You know, you can throw those away, and you use it to wipe your hands, keep everything clean. If you spill a little bit somewhere, you can easily wipe it up. Good idea, good suggestion to have a good roll of paper towel nearby, if you don't have a good collection of shop rags. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but I've got the filter off down there. I'm allowing it to drain. Now my pan has a spot to set the filter to let it fully drain into the collecting pan. And next we'll prepare the new filter with a little bit of new oil inside, and I will clean the area where it's going on and get it installed. So if you're unclear about the oil type that you're supposed to use in your engine, the amount of quarts you put in the engine, you know, I always refer to your factory service manual or the owner's manual of your vehicle. So taking a look, if you checking for your oil types are recommended from the manufacturer, and capacities and stuff like that, you know, it's stating to use 530. 1030 can be used, but should be changed back to 530 as soon as possible, and it's recommending it by temperature. Also, it's for oil capacity drain refill reference, with filter 3.9 quarts, without filter 3.6 quarts. Now, I don't recommend ever doing an oil change without changing the filter. I guess some people say it doesn't bother, you know, it doesn't bother anything, it doesn't hurt anything, but they're not expensive, so why not change it with the filter every change, right? So yeah, so we're looking at with filter 3.9 quarts, and we're going to put a little bit in the filter to start with. I'll show you that right now. Taking the filter, because this filter screws up into the engine like this and not to the side or even drop on like this. Some of them you have a cartridge that'll go on this way, some of them engines you'll have the filter goes on this way, but this one goes on like this. So it's always a good idea to pre-fill the filter with oil. And you want to use clean oil, of course. I would have the biggest container here to deal with, and this can be a little bit tricky when you're using a big container like this. Just be careful, fill it up so it doesn't run over, and the filter media will absorb some of it as it's filling, so you'll just want to top it off again. You don't need it all the way full, but it helps to be pre-filled. Like, I've filled it to the top where the threads are, and then the filter media will absorb it, and really helps with the initial startup, you know. Then you're going to take your finger, put a little bit of clean oil on the O-ring gasket, and we'll be good to go. So as you've seen today, we're using Mobil 1 products. Now I'm in no way affiliated with Mobil 1. They didn't pay for this. They didn't sponsor this, nothing. I just like to use Mobil 1 products. This engine recommends using synthetic oil, and you can use conventional, I assume, but everywhere I've read or looked at, synthetic is what's recommended. So we're gonna go with the 530 fully synthetic motor oil. And remember, this uses 3.6 quarts. So we've got liter measurements and quart measurements. So this would be 1 quart, 2 quart, 3 quart, 4 quart, and then up here would be the 5th. So we're gonna go to 3 quarts. So we'll be 1, 2, 3, and about halfway. It's 3.6. So get yourself a clean funnel and get ready to pour. Take your time, don't make a mess. Go. Now we're headed for, that's 3 quarts. Now we're headed for the 0.6. There we go. I like that. Now there are good ways of measuring that. You can buy measuring cups that have the precise measurements on it, and it's much more accurate. There's ways to dispense it. If you have a dispenser that will dispense just a certain amount of quantity of quarts. This one we were going 3.6 or thereabouts. So this was 3, 1, 2, and 3, and we're right just a little bit more than halfway through the line. So I'm calling that good. And now most motor oils will have a motor oil for high mileage engines, and this one, like I said, is only 55,000. If you have more than 75,000, there's motor oils out there that are for high mileage engines. And what it is they contain more zinc to help lubricate the parts better, and it's good for the bearings and whatnot. This engine doesn't really require it. I don't think it would have hurt if I put it in, because that zinc additive is usually something good to use in the engines. It's more for the bearing materials and where the lifters run on the cams and that kind of thing. It just helps to minimize friction. So I'm using regular full synthetic, and we're all full now. So naturally, it's always a good idea to check the oil level. Now, you know, when you feel from the top of the engine, it's going to take a while for that oil to get down to the pan. But it's always a good idea to check. Make sure you've got enough in there. Pull your dipstick out, and they're usually marked in yellow. Clean it as you're coming out. Catch it. Make sure it's all nice and clean. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but there's 2 dots. There's usually like hash marks or 2 dots or some kind of marking right here that you want to be kind of within the middle or within the area of those dots or those hash marks if your dipstick has them. You put it back in, pull it back out carefully, not to make a mess, dripping. And you'll see that your oil doesn't show well on the camera, does it? It's between those dots. So I'm good. And once we drive it around a little bit, we can always check it again and make sure that we have the right amount of oil in it. Just don't assume that it's there, you know. And I'm going to start it up now, and I'm going to check for leaks. As long as I have no leaks, we'll call this job done, and we'll move on to the next part of this service. So we started it up. We've got no leaks, and we let it run for a little while. Got no leaks. I'll go ahead and I'll check it level one more time now that it's moved around the engine, and make sure we've got enough. Remember, dispose of that old oil properly. Don't just let it lay around. Or I left it like this one time when I did the oil change in my Samurai, and the container was actually close to the wheel, so when I made a turn to actually leave the driveway, I spilled the 5 quarts of oil all down the side of the driveway. And don't you know that was a disaster to clean up and to catch it before it got to the street? It was a mess, but I took care of it. I stopped it with kitty litter and we cleaned it up, and man, it took a good couple hours to clean all that mess up. So always make sure the old oil's out of your way so you don't trip on it, spill it in any way. but dispose of it properly. Okay, so like I said, we've got no leaks, and now it's time to clear that maintenance light. So let's go in and do that. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna clear the maintenance light. Now when you do this, you wanna make sure you're set on your trip odometer A. All right, you have B, A and B. Make sure you're on A. And let's do that by turning the car on, but we don't wanna put it to start. See, it's on A, then there's B. There's miles per gallon, whatever, we don't want that. There's the average, range, average again. There's the miles, 55,456. See, it's pretty low on this car. And of course, there's trip A. Setting. You can see right there, it says trip, and it'll have a black box with an A in it. So then turn the key off. Now here's kind of the hard part. You've got to hold the chip button. You've got to hold it down while turning the key to the start to the run position, but do not start it. So let's see if I can do that without messing up the camera. Let's see, how can I do that? Hold the trip, turn the key, and you'll see that the maintenance required light is flashing. Flashes off. Turn the car off, release. Now when you start the car, there should not be a maintenance required light. There we go. Maintenance required light is reset, and we are good to go for till the next oil change. All right, let's move on to the next part of this project. So the next part of this project is the air filter. This is all part of a regular service. Now this doesn't need to be done every time you change the oil. We changed this when we bought the car, and I don't expect it to be very dirty. But for the cost of these things, you know, it's just preventative maintenance, you know. And there's just 2 little clips that you release on the side, pull lift up, and pull the air filter out. Now this is a little bit dirty, you can see, but there were still some miles left in it, you know. Quite a few miles left to go on this one, but we're gonna go ahead and change it. If you take a look down inside, you'll see a bunch of debris that comes in while the engine's running over the years. Now I'm gonna take my vacuum and I'm gonna vacuum that out. It won't get to the engine because the filter is what stops it, but I don't see any reason to leave it in there, and I'm gonna go ahead and vacuum it out. All right, so now that I've got it all vacuumed down inside, let's put that new filter in. So the new filter, it's a Fram. This is a 10190. There are a lot of different filters out there to use. Most of my other vehicles use K&N or Volant or other types of reusable filters where you just wash them out. This one, however, it's just the Yaris, and I'm not going to use a reusable. So this one will suit the purpose just fine, and we'll get it installed. It's got a little square corner, and the other corners are round. It fits in there one way with the gasket towards the top. Then it just got little grooves to fit in. Seat it back down and put on the 2 locks. So when you go to put it back in, you got to make sure it fits in this one, and there's another one on the other side. Kind of hard to see. And then you got 2 locks on each side. You just put those back on. Filter installed. So now we've changed the oil, we've installed a new filter. You can take a look at your battery terminals when you're down here. Make sure they're good and clean. If there's any corrosion around them, then you need to clean the corrosion off. There's tools that are designed to clean that corrosion. You can use a little bit of baking soda and lemon juice, I believe, or orange juice, some type of acid, and clean them and wash them down. Make sure they're good and rinsed off. You don't want that stuff getting all over. So it's always a good idea to check your battery. These are maintenance-free batteries. There's no way really to check the levels inside them. I'm sure there is if you wanted to get really technical, but they're maintenance-free batteries, kind of on their own. Good idea to take a look at your belt. Make sure there's no frays, nothing hanging out looking weird, or it looks like it might be coming apart. This one seems to be in pretty good shape, although maybe we'll change it soon because this is the original belt from 2017. put on there in France, but who knows, maybe we'll let it go a little bit longer. Other than that, the rest of the engine looks really clean. Like I said before, I like to keep my engines clean. You can check your window washer, you know, you can look down in there and see if you need to add fluid. If you can, add a little bit of window washer fluid. I don't have any at the moment. You could use water, but it's best to use window washer fluid. This is your coolant. Never take this cap off, especially when it's hot. You can always check just by looking here. And there is, down here on the side, it's really hard to tell, but there's fill here, and there's low here on the bottom. And you'll see the red coolant, and the Toyota, it's red. And you'll see where it is. If it's below the full and or if it's in the middle of the full and the low, you're good. If it's low, you want to add some until it gets up here to towards the full side, but you don't have to fill it all the way up. Good idea to check that. And yeah, you know, you could always walk around and check your tires. It's a good time to check your tires. Make sure they're set to the proper air pressure. They usually have ratings on here on where they go, you know, and what air pressure they like to go to. I like to use 35, so I'll set all mine to 35, or 32 is even fine, but 35 is a little easier for the scales. And check your tires. Now, like these big BFGs, they go more than 40 sometimes, like 45 pounds of air you got to run in them, like the ones we have here on the Frontier. But for these passenger car tires, usually 32 or 35 is fine. Just make sure they're all the same. You can do light inspection at this time. Make sure all your light bulbs are working. And you know, just give the car a once over. Maybe wash it if you want to. You know, give it a good wax job. It's always good to wax your car. And you know, clean up the inside. This has been a great car. We take good care of it. And yeah, look forward to many more years of good use from this car. Runs good. Now this is a 1.5, so it's not going to get out of your way pretty fast. You got to give it time. But for the size of an engine, it does have enough power for the little car. All right, so I'm going to end this video here. Let's recap of what we did. We changed the oil. We changed the oil filter. We looked at the manual to get the recommendations of what the oil type was, the viscosity, and the amount of quarts that it used in the engine. I think it was 3.6 quarts, if I remember correctly. If it's different, I'll put it in the description somewhere. We cleared the maintenance light on the dash. Really simple process of turning the key on, putting it on trip A, and then turning the key back off, holding trip A, turn the key back to the start, or to the, excuse me, turn the key back to the run position. While you're holding the button, it will blink until it stops blinking. Then you can turn the key off and release the button, and your maintenance light will be cleared. We changed the air filter. Even though this one really wasn't needed to be changed, we changed it just at preventative maintenance. And we had a good time while we're at it. You know, we didn't make any big spills, no messes. You know, this car maintenance stuff is fun. If you have a chance to do it yourself, I enjoy it. You know, I really enjoy it. I've done it since I was old enough to turn a wrench. And I enjoy it. So I enjoyed this today. It's warm today. The nice cool breeze. So it wasn't that bad. But yeah, now window regulators in the Frontier, that's my next adventure for today. And the passenger side is not working as it should. We already changed the driver's side, but that was all before I had my YouTube channel, DIY Willy. So this time I'm going to try to film the passenger side install, and that'll be another video. But that's my next project for today. I think the Yaris is done for now, and it was easy. It was good. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. So please come back to DIY Willy for many more fun projects that we do on our cars, and of course our mini bikes. And I'll see you next time. Hit that subscribe button, please, and hit the thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Bye. We're done.